Welcome to Human Design Powered Business. I'm Victoria Gibson, and every week I am sharing how you can harness your human design to unlock more flow, leverage, and opportunity within your business. So let's dive in. Hello again. It's great to be here. I have been diving deep into creating my 6 cash flow keys for you, which are really about activating your inherent profit potential from within your human design. In the 6 cash flow keys, I talk through some of the planetary activations and influences on your business success and your ability to kind of make things happen from an income and an impact perspective. So I have the 6 human design success codes as well, where you can go deeper along that path. But I wanted to have something that was a simple way for you to understand how the power of your human design and your true nature can be harnessed for relatively quick impacts instead of tactics and strategies on their own that really pay no mind to your nature and what's within to help move those strategies ahead, help harness your strengths, but also overcome some of those sabotages that happen within all of us, because we're all having a deeply human experience in this world. So finding the light and the shade of that within you, which is what I love about human design. But another element of that is, yes, it's there, but it takes a lot of understanding to get the penny to drop. So I've been really trying to find those portals for you that can bring those insights from your human design faster than perhaps you may have found in the past, or you may have experienced as you've tried to learn more, particularly about its application in business. One of the strengths, of course, of human design is all the dimension and the elements that are within that really align with our unique nature, rather than just simple, here's 12 elements and this is the style of who you are. Like, it goes so much deeper into sharing our true nature and giving us that blueprint to live with less resistance, to succeed from our strengths, and to keep our sabotages at bay, or at least have an awareness and understanding of them so that we don't let them take over and write the script of our life and our success, which is so easy to do because we're all taught things as we grow up. We're all expected to live in certain ways according to various perceptions, expectations, cultural norms, all of those things that have been handed down or have just been accepted to be what needs to take place. And there's so many of those across life and business. But when we can get to the heart of who we are and our true nature, and even just having some more insight and understanding into that, really allows you to free yourself from a lot of guilt, shame, and blame, and some of the ways those shadows can really hold us back. So when I was looking at the courage key, how do we take courageous action in our business? And what stops us from doing that when we have these goals? And of course, we want to achieve them. And sometimes even we do achieve them, yet then we find ourselves rejecting them or sabotaging them in some way, or holding ourselves back from the momentum that our goals bring when they arrive and we make them happen. What I love about the courage key is that within your human design life chart, you can find this in your Mars placement at the time of birth in your life chart. So you'll find that on your conscious or your personality side of your life chart or your body graph. I like to call it a life chart. It's sort of got your life mapped out, and that was how I learned, and who I learned from, they called it a life chart. And so I think it's more relatable than a body graph. It sounds a bit like I'm going to do a polygraph. And really, it kind of is like a polygraph, right? Because it is the truth of who you are. This is the inner truth of who we are. So when we look at generally the 13 gate placements on the right-hand side of your chart, if you get your free human design guide on my website, you will find your life chart and a detailed report on your type and authority for free. But if you go to that life chart page, you'll have a look And about halfway down, you'll see the traditional sign for a male on Mars, the Mars symbol. And then you'll see a number, then you'll see a gate number, and then a line number on that chart. Okay, so the line number is from 1 to 6. The gate number is from 1 to 64. This is going to point to how you can find your courage to take your next big leap in business, or to get your business back on track, or to pivot or reverse any plateau in your business right now. Those things that you feel like should have happened by now but haven't because you've hit resistance points. And a lot of these can be recurring. So when we look to our conscious Mars placement or our courage key, you're going to be able to go a little deeper into how you can make more success happen in business, creating more consistent cash flow, which often is a bit of a badge of success, getting the returns in our business, getting the results for our clients, making the impact, making the income that we want. They're all very inextricably linked to our success. And the cash flow keys that I step you through relate to some of those areas that will impact your income and your returns in your business. And if we want to look at how we can harness these and unlock more profit in our business and step into our highest potential by living into our purpose in our business, uncovering our shadowy sides and the patterns of sabotage and also our inherent strengths, then our courage key is really about how we make that success happen. What action do we need to take to bring those keys? What action do we need to take to unlock those cash flow keys and the inherent success that we all have available to us? But sometimes we lack awareness, and sometimes we have the conditioning and recurring patterns that keep us stuck in sabotage and in the shadowy parts of ourselves. That's human design, right? Like, yes, there's a strength in every one of our 64 gates, but there's also shadowier sides and some elements that can really block us and hold us back and show us when we're not in alignment, when we're not in sync with our true nature and our highest potential. So not only do we need to honor the gifts and the strengths that are natural to us, but we also need to put the qualities into action. And when we talk about that action, as I said, we look to our courage key or our conscious Mars placement in our life chart, because the energy of Mars is about the courage to take action. If we look at the force of the planet Mars, it's about repulsion and resistance. Venus is magnetized to the Earth, and Mars resists the pull of the Earth in order to venture forth. That's how it takes its action. And if you remember the old John Gray best-selling relationship self-help book back in the years of probably early 90s, maybe even late 80s, I'm not 100% sure. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, right? Venus is magnetized to the Earth. She's about attraction. So that's in one of our other cash flow keys. The client attraction key relates to our conscious Venus, right? But when we look at how we've got the courage to take action, to venture forth, and to venture forth with courage, then we look at Mars. So, men go and do their thing, right? And women magnetize people to them. That was kind of the whole premise of the John Gray book. Very simplistic, but, it kind of demonstrated a point. And the simplicity that I would like to bring to human design in business, where we can have an insight and an understanding from those simple insights that can bring great change and understanding and awareness. And that is part of the work that I've been doing with human design, and particularly having in my conscious sun, I have gate 23, line 5. So that is about simplicity. It is about simplicity, absolutely, and simplicity and leading with simple solutions and fixes for people, right? So that's a big part of who I'm here to be and the work that I do. And that human design gate 23 and the line 5
also sits in my unconscious Mars. So our unconscious Mars is actually about the natural talent that we are here to express. It can also be about your core vocation, as Richard Rudd refers to it in Gene Keys, or your wound. Like, as much as it can be the talent, it can also be your wound, because anything in unconscious or design, it's sort of what we're programmed or already like hardwired to have, right? We haven't chosen it. I mean, none of it we do choose, but right, we're more familiar with what's on the conscious side, and so are others and their experience of us. Those outside of ourselves generally have a better sense of those unconscious elements. And the courage key, your courage key isn't my first cash flow key, right? It's what we need to make the other 4 previous keys happen, and the one that comes after that, your contribution key. So the courage key reveals our drive to succeed and our ability to take the action to reach our goals and that success that we want in business, the lasting success, the more effortless success, not the kind of success that burns us out, not the kind of success we have to force, not the kind of success where we have to be someone else. Okay, this is about overcoming a lot of those emotional barriers, recurring patterns of sabotage and limitation, and those elements of our shadow self that stand in the way of our success and stand in the way of us expressing the highest potential of that gate and that nature as well. And the block that shows up as a shadow force driving sabotage and resistance in this courage key can oftentimes feel like a familiar old friend, but it's really one of our worst enemies when it comes to having the courage to take action to make those goals happen in business and also in our relationships. I wanted to look more to this how it rules taking action, stepping into leadership, and making your big goals happen. I'm going to talk about my courage key just to give you some of those insights and learnings, and hopefully that gives you a bit of understanding about how you can approach yours. Obviously, there's going to be 64 different gates that you could have, or 6 different lines, and how they could impact your courage key and how you can take action to make your success more inevitable and overcome your sabotage. So when we look at the gate, we want to look at not only the highest expression of what that gate can bring and its highest level of strength, but we also want to look at what elements of it could hold us back. And we also want to look at the influence of the line, the flavor that it brings to how we approach our initiative, how we take that, how that initiative can come about. Now, we can also, within this conscious Mars placement, look at the relevance of our circuitry in human design, how we're wired and what elements of where the gate is in our design, how else that influences how we have access to the strength of it, and how prone it can be also to others' influences, or whether it allows us to have better access to influence, and how it's going to impact society at large. Particularly in business, it's about how that would impact our audience, our community, and the role that our initiative and our courageous action has in impacting others. So when you're looking at your conscious Mars, you also want to have a look at which one of the 3 main circuit groups that Mars sits. Now, if you're not into circuitry yet in human design, don't worry. It's more about how the energy flows through you and the nature of how that flows through you and how you have access to it that impacts your influence or being influenced by others. So when you look up your conscious Mars, it's in the collective circuitry, then your actions are engaged with a bigger audience that operates through shared beliefs, right? That kind of come together. And so that brings to mind Denise Duffield Thomas. She's a successful businesswoman, and her conscious Mars is in collective circuitry, which is perfect for her because she has a very far-reaching audience and they all really get behind her beliefs, and they share these beliefs about transforming your money blocks to succeed in business and life. So if your Mars is in collective circuitry, then the delivery of your work can have that broad appeal to a large segment of society. And your challenge will always be to keep it relevant, current, and engaging, and even entertaining. So that's part of how you're going to be showing up on social media and engaging with your audience, of course. And as with all elements of human design, there's other elements that definitely impact each. Like they can't sit in isolation here. And that's really why I wanted to just dive into some of them, because I think it gives us a greater understanding of the power of each of these elements. But we do have to look at it in relation to not only all our cash flow keys and all our success codes, but our human design as a whole as well. And if your Mars is in tribal circuitry, then your delivery is engaged with more of a family feel, right? Like it's the real tribe. Like if you've ever read Seth Godin's book Tribes, that's very much about leading a tribe, having followers come from that shared understanding and that cause that they can get behind. And you being a trailblazer, even in a smaller community, even, building smaller tribes of a unified audience. And if your Mars is within the tribal circuitry, if your courage key is in tribal circuitry, your client's going to look for that support, right? Tribal circuitry is about giving that support, that nurturing, that lifting everybody up for abundance, material success, and you will naturally provide it. But you'll also need to be careful about establishing boundaries around that element too. If your Mars is in individual circuitry, then what you deliver is transformation. Okay? So my Mars is in gate 39, line 5, that's individual circuitry. So it is about transformation. And if I look at the impact of Mars being in individual circuitry, then I need to look at the impact of making sure that I am understood, because individual circuitry is very unique and different to the status quo or collective wisdom and accepted norms. And my conscious sun and earth are in individual circuitry. So what I'm here to do in business is transform others. And that being in individual circuitry, I need to be clear. And when I am, people will trust me to take them to a completely new appreciation of their life, or a new identity, or new results and new success. And I've seen this time and time again. When people do trust me, they get the benefit of my courageous action inspiring them to take action. Because gate 39 is in the root center in human design. And the root center is all about drive and making things happen. Now, I have an undefined root center. So that means I can share that wisdom of that center, and I'm not as fixed as to how that needs to be. So I amplify the drive to start and complete projects for my clients. So gate 39, in terms of it being a catalyst, an activator, a provocateur. That's where I can utilize it to activate my clients there, and how I can take courageous action to help them in their transformation. Because the courage key is how you do your work in the world. And when I dove deeper into gate 39, and I'm like, it's about activating, it's about liberating. And it's about creating freedom and expressing my own unique creativity. But when I first heard about it in traditional human design terms, gate 39 was a gate of provocation. And I felt like, yeah, I could definitely relate to that, because provocation is actually the shadow side of gate 39. It's what happens when you're being reactive, when you're taking things personally, when you're in fear of not being heard, understood, or being able to express your unique creativity. Then you can react by being very provocative. And I can definitely see how that has been the case for me, right? Like provocation can be kind of one of my defaults if I am in fear or reactivity. The other element of being in fear of this gate is feeling really trapped. And I have definitely felt that in my business before, where I haven't been able to take that courageous action. I've felt incredibly trapped. And I've then used that to sabotage me going forward. Like even if things have succeeded, and by nature of my energy type being a manifestor, I felt tired and I felt like I've had to keep going on when I needed to rest. I felt very trapped. So I haven't wanted to take the courageous action to keep moving forward because I didn't have an awareness of that. And one of the other elements is feeling like I have to please others so that I can't express my unique creativity because it doesn't go down well with everybody because it's in that individual circuitry, right? It's not always understood or trusted. And coming from my other elements of my design that are in their strength about simplicity, but when they're in their shadow, they're about confusion, talking out of turn, not having the right timing before speaking. It can create misunderstanding and really a lot of unnecessary complexity. And I mean, if I stay in my mind, I just want to make things so complicated. Even like I'll be explaining them to people when I haven't chosen the right timing, when I'm not feeling clear, but I have the urge to get my expression out there, and I can see people's faces just going, what on earth are you talking about? That's very much a part of my nature too. So when I saw that the gate of provocation was a gate that I needed to harness for my success, I was just like, but how? How do you make that great? But as always, you can go deeper and find the higher elements of every single gate. That's why I want to be able to package up these keys and these codes for you so you don't have to look through all of the 64 gates and be a human design expert because it's time consuming and confusing, right? So we want to simplify that and give you the essence of what you need to know to harness this in business. So when I uncovered that it really was a path to creativity and unique creative expression and having what Richard Rudd calls in this gate the gift of dynamism, which I didn't even really know what that word meant. I was like, dynamism, what does that mean? But yeah, being dynamic, right? Coming in to ignite others and initiate, but for higher purpose, not shadowy, lower purpose of provoking people for the sake of it or fighting with people for the sake of it. But even if you think about my courage key, obviously I do need to take a stand with this as part of the way I take action. It is about igniting and activating and having the approach of being that catalyst, like it's the archetype of the catalyst. It's kind of coming in to push people forward, but inspire them to take their courageous action forward, not force them or provoke them into or fight with them about it to make it just a complete nightmare. It is about being the ultimate button pusher. I think Richard Rudd talks about that in the Gene Keys about Gate 39, the ultimate button pusher. And that's very much a part of my nature too. So I could identify with that, pushing those buttons. I'm like that with my clients. Sometimes they'll just be like, whoa, okay, lay it on the line. I am a straight shooter because I am here to help them not stay stuck and trapped in their own patterns that are preventing them from their highest potential. So it's interesting how the work that we do will mirror a lot of the work that we have to do within some of these keys and codes. So when I looked more about dynamism and looked at the Gene Keys expression of this, it says it's a vibrant creative life force. Like the boundless energy of a child, unleashed by following one's passions and engaging in physical play. It represents an enthusiastic way of being, engaged with the creativity of life, catalyzing excitement and inspiration for others. That feels like me in my higher potential. In those moments where I have been leading masterminds and groups of women to move through to new levels of success, to transform from their old identities, to welcome in more income and impact. That excitement and catalyzing excitement and having that real level of enthusiasm and thinking about things creatively in relation to the work that they're doing and their opportunities, that's very much a gift of what I have when I'm coaching. However, of course, when we look at the shadow side of it, like I said, I can still feel trapped, or I can still feel like I want to kind of provoke or be in the fear of people are going, I can still feel trapped. I can still be in the fear of being personally attacked because I'm not understood or I'm not embraced the same way, say, someone like Denise is with her broad, far-reaching impacts in this part of her design. I don't have that, right? I'm here for a specific audience who are ready to hear and who want to transform. And and are trusting in the clarity that I have to help them transform. So when I think about my key and coming up with a way to express what that is, my own understanding and how I can get my message out there more, then I can take elements of, if I read the Gene Keys, or I go to Chayton Parkin's The Book of Lines, or his Human Design book where I read about the gate. I can pull elements of those out and find the different dimensions and understand where I want to move towards, what I need to harness, and what I need to be aware of that's holding me back. So we also want to look at the line in which your conscious Mars is activated, right? Because it's going to have particular properties that relate to you taking this courageous action and overcoming a lot of this self-sabotage or recurring patterns that have kept you from holding on to success or going after it in the first place. So first lines are likely to be very direct in their dealings and taking actions. They confront things head on or alternatively avoid them deliberately. And if you do have a first line in your conscious Mars, then taking a direct approach is your way to get a hands-on sense of anything, and that involves you. It's all a very personal approach here. Second lines usually have an innocent approach to taking this courageous action. So you might enter into situations without necessarily seeing the bigger consequences. They can come from nowhere for you. And even if you do understand that there will be consequences, you can have a great effect by happening on these discoveries and entering into these circumstances that you may not have immediately understood or appreciated. It's got an element of that genius that just shows up. Third lines, as always, have a trial and error approach to life that can cause bumps and bruises, but often really big breakthroughs, provided you're prepared to persevere. And having a sense of humor is really helpful if you have a third line here, and being quick to adapt your actions to the needs of the moment are really your greatest strengths. So commitment is everything, and being really clear is also super, super important here. With a fourth line, you're encouraged to keep an open-hearted. With a fourth line in your conscious Mars, you're encouraged to be open-hearted with the world. Otherwise, you'll end up hiding and form a closed and protective shield and not take any of the action. So perhaps if you've found yourself resisting taking action and you have a line 4 in your conscious Mars placement, then that probably stems from having your courage challenged previously and leaving you left having a protective shield up and having your fingers burnt and not wanting to go there again. But you have the potential to be highly influential, particularly through your networks and associations, and those elements are typical fourth line way. So you want to kind of be part of a team, have that collaboration and partnership there. So looking to how that shadow there can be a protective shield. And fifth lines like to apply their mental overview. Now, fifth lines, you like to apply. Now, fifth lines, if you have a line 5 in your conscious Mars, then you're likely to want to think deeper about a lot of situations before you take action. And so fifth lines really like to think about how their action is going to play out across situations, and they're likely to have big proposals and grand ideas that they want to jump into or convince others to do for them. But they need to stay grounded in reality and keep focused on the attainable. And of course, a line 5 energy has that projection field. So others will be projecting that you're the natural leader. So you want to be clear in yourself that you're ready to lead. That's really essential. So if you feel like your identity as being successful has happened faster than your ability to accept that or embrace it, then that can be another form of sabotage here. So your resistance might also come. So another area of potential sabotage for a line 5 in conscious Mars can also be about staying stuck in that visualization of the solution and talking through your mental overview of what is going to happen or your proposal, right? Rather than actually making it happen. Now, 6 lines. I've got a 6 line in my conscious Mars. They're authority figures when getting things done properly. And if you have a 6 line in your courage key, then you have the choice to willingly engage or set yourself apart from the action. But when you do engage, that's when the benefit's going to come. When you set yourself apart, then success is going to be more difficult. You might be challenged for being standoffish or not being part of the team or the collective in a way. So you want to find those actions that have real value for you, the courageous action that does have meaning, that really matters to you. And then you can call everyone along with you because they're going to follow that authority. And also the line 6 here is like hard won through a lot of emotional ups and downs in relation to having taken courageous action and having made their goals happen. Sometimes there's been a lot of emotional turmoil in some of those pursuits and the results of those pursuits, which can definitely lead to a feeling of separateness and a fear that makes you want to hang back from taking that action. So I cut that in double doses with my 39-6, the 39 of feeling trapped or the reactive nature of wanting to provoke people, but then recoiling from taking personally if there's any negative fallout from any of that shadowy or sabotagey kind of behavior. Or if I've been in my gift of igniting others and catalyzing and enthusiastically igniting that transformation, that can still have blowback, particularly in the 39 line 6, where we see that if I help others escape their problems and not be trapped anymore, yet they're not wanting to release that state for them, and that can create blowback. So if I've done that over time, then that can cause me to want to sort of stand apart or fear diving in again with the gift of dynamism, and that creates liberation. I love the gene key higher gift of this gate, or like Richard Rudd likes to call the city, liberation. Now that I can get behind. I need to work on ensuring that I can make that gift shine brighter, my courage key. Look at my line 6, making sure that I'm not letting past emotional turbulence stop me from taking action, or I'm not letting the fear of taking things personally stop me from being in that gift. That's going to bring about more opportunities to liberate others through expressing my own unique creativity. And that to me is inspiring. I can see now from when I first looked at this gate maybe 18 months ago in this area of my business, in this area of my business growth and opportunities, I was kind of a bit despondent going, oh, well, I don't know about that. But that's the beauty of doing this work, where you can come in and see, aha, we have an awareness. Then we can work on that understanding and also the practicing not going into those sabotage patterns. Because emotional patterns contain really powerful charges held within. And as your awareness unlocks those sabotage patterns that you can see within some of these keys, then you can either be overwhelmed by it, you can resist it, or you can be toppled by it. And we want to make sure that you don't do any of that. You want to be able to take the steps of harnessing your strengths and having that understanding for where you might fall off track so that you can keep getting back on track, because the more of that you do, the more you're going to step towards a higher expression of these keys within you, which is super exciting. So it's important to be patient and compassionate with yourself. Like I said, we're all humans having a human experience here. It takes time to bring awareness and understanding into some of these more shadowy parts of our nature. But this process allows us to do that faster than you probably could in a few years therapy, right? Because who's actually going to really identify that as a therapist? They might see some certain patterns happening, but often it can be about challenging you. Okay, what are you going to do to change that? But if the sabotage is within how you take action, then that can be very difficult to unhook from a mental or cognitive perspective, which is what a lot of therapy can be about. So this work is really valuable in terms of you stepping into your success, your leadership, and activating that profit potential within by being able to take courageous action. And if you want to know where I kind of landed with my direction in taking courageous action within my business, I summarized it to, and this is just a statement for myself really, which was about my natural gift for solving problems cuts through obstacles and challenges, engaging others and rousing their spirit to liberate them from limited thinking and other people's influence so they can experience radical growth and transform and succeed. So when I'm clear, I attract people who trust me to take them into a completely new appreciation of their lives. And I love the definition of Gene Key 39 that Richard Rudd has created. It's the path of liberation from provocation to dynamism. The 39th gift is all about unlocking freedom at all levels. These people are either utterly locked or they're the great unlockers and unblockers. Once they've learned the art, they become expert at helping others. They can apply this gift into any field we can imagine because ultimately they know how to release stagnant energy through a system. They're very valuable people. I love that because it talks to why I haven't been able to harness that in terms of I need to unlock that for myself first. And the first step in doing that is the awareness, the understanding, and then the practicing and the discipline to keep going to the unique creative expression, the stepping into the dynamism and not falling into the provocation or feeling trapped. Or the liberation inspires me so much more to do that than those shadowy parts that sometimes we just accept that they are who we are. And yes, they're part of our nature. Our shadow is still part of who we are. We can't always just eliminate them, but what we can do is understand them and start to transcend them. So really, this is about freedom, me creating freedom for myself through business and me creating freedom for others in business too. And in looking more at what Richard Rudd writes about this, he talks about communicating appreciation, right? So not being in that feeling trapped. You want to communicate how much of life you're appreciating, even through your trials, your tribulations, and your struggles. And a quote that he has there too saying, the superior man, but I'd say woman too, the superior woman turns around to examine herself and cultivate her virtue rather than being in that fear and reactive state can bring about great opportunities for taking courageous action. And if I look at the I Ching definition, it is provocation and hardship. Finding a way through obstacles of all sorts opens you to challenges that promote personal growth, right? So rather than being flattened by those challenges, I can choose to use those. And I feel like that's so much more now as I am, in that heading towards menopause, in that phase of like, I'm going into a new era. I'm stepping into a different stage of my life where I've had hard-fought, hard-won experiences and a lot of challenges, as we all have. You can have those even earlier in life, of course. But having the perspective of being able to see these from a different understanding gives us so much more power. And in the Book of Lines, Gate 39, Chaitin writes, the outer and inner reflect each other perfectly. If you are perplexed by the way in which your world mirrors you, look within yourself to find the source of that reflection. Provoking or being provoked is not the same as fighting. Now, that felt quite impactful to me because it's so easy to look outside of ourselves for the cause of our upset when oftentimes it is looking within and understanding what you're mirroring there that can be very, very powerful. And 39 line 6 is about troubleshooting, the natural gift for solving problems. And he says here, some people enjoy having their problems, so fixing their problems can really upset them. So when you're not invited to be coached, or when I just give, in my enthusiasm, give some ideas and coaching, I can really see those who are ready to transform and those who are not. And obviously, there are some people that are perfectly within their rights to be pissed off with me if I do give them some advice. That's totally fine, particularly if it hasn't been invited. And there's another element in Mars, when 39.6 is in Mars. In the Book of Lines, it says, if you always take on problems, regardless of facts, you can end up causing greater problems. So it's also about looking at, okay, what's the facts here and understanding where to take action in relation to problems, either my own or others there too. So you can get some of those amazing insights when we go into how we can start taking more courageous action towards our success. So if you want to discover your courage key, then grab a free copy of your life chart, your human design life chart on my website, and look to your Mars placement on the right-hand side of the chart, in your conscious side of the chart, and get ready to dive even deeper in my upcoming Cashflow Keys blueprint, where I'm going to go through the 6 Cashflow Keys and those elements that are custom to you. You're going to be able to put your details in and have that information there where you've got a fortune map to your innate profit potential within, and what to sidestep, what to avoid, what to harness, what to embrace in order to unlock more consistent cash flow, income, impact, and also some soul deep success, and help you gain awareness and understanding of what's been holding you back from the success that you really want in business, not the success you thought you wanted or that you had but didn't feel good. This is about soul deep success, not just success on the surface. And those 6 cash flow keys really are like our money codes for how we can activate that income and impact and create more profit and purpose with more peace. So stay tuned. That's coming soon, but you can still grab your life chart and free guide in the meantime. Also, I just noticed before when I went to find an episode on my podcast that I had a setting on my podcast that only had the last 8 episodes displayed in my podcast. So that was really silly, because some of you who are maybe more recent listeners may not realize there were a lot more of my human design episodes in my podcast if you want to go back to them, including the 6 essentials of a human design powered business and the 6 lines of business growth, these little mini series that I kicked the podcast off with. And there are even more episodes from my Earn More as a Life Coach podcast back in the day as well. I realized I had not had these displayed, which really wasn't very helpful. Just giving you a heads up there that there may be new episodes in there that you haven't seen. Scroll back down if you want more human design goodies, and stay tuned for more about Cashflow keys, S codes, and life and times in business and growth. I hope you have a brilliant week, and I'll see you next time. By the way, if you've ever got a question you'd like to ask me, I'm a real human. I hang out on Instagram at I am Victoria Gibson, where you can find me and send me a message, grab any free guides, or get your next report. I always look forward to hearing from you, so don't be shy.